So welcome everybody. Welcome to Hot Song Podcast. It is June. We're in June already. It's already June 5th, 2025. And the topic for today is destiny. So let me actually get my notes first. So what do I mean by destiny? Um, before we come to Earth, before we incarnate on Earth, we each are when we are on the other side of the veil. So our soul kind of um, figured out what it is that we want to, that the soul wants to experience in a lifetime before we actually come here. So our soul actually made a plan. Um, in actuality, our soul actually made has actually mapped out a very elaborate plan that involves multiple incarnations and also how we can assist our soul family to grow together. So all that kind of is mapped out. And when we come here, we come into linear time or more or less linear time. And so we are actually experiencing a plan that we have, well, parts of us has actually planned out for us. So let's say if we are going to come here to be a teacher this lifetime, then they would make sure, okay, so whom should your father be? Whom should your mother be? Siblings, that kind of, that will be able to support you to be to have the experience of being the best teacher that you can possibly be, that kind of stuff. So all these kind of it's has been mapped out. And in order for us to be able to have that experience, we also, because on the other side, we have infinite abilities, we are all knowing and all that. However, the part of the deal of coming to Earth is that we forget who we truly are. And so before we come here, we have a plan to, okay, if I want to be here to have, to be a teacher, for example, then, what kind of gifts would I be bringing with me? I have to have at least have a certain amount of mental abilities, because if I'm, if I can't even think straight, then how can I teach other people? Do anything that may be worthy of other people allowing me to teach them anything. So we have to have a certain kind of mental capabilities. We have to be able to, at least be pleasant enough that other people, don't want to throw stones at us when we are talking. So there are certain things, certain abilities that we it's most likely going to assist us in order to have the experience that we want to have as planned. So we come here, I would call those endowments. So before we come here, we decided, okay, I'm going to have, let's say, 40% okay, maybe 60% of mental ability. I would have, let's say, 70% of, emotional sensitivities. And so, that kind of stuff. So we kind of bring with us a set of abilities, and those I would call, endowments. So it's kind of like resources that we bring with us, because if we do not limit to those, then we may not be able to get the experience we want. And also we can't bring everything with us, because if we are all infinitely if we have all the abilities, each of us, then there'll be no challenge for us. Life won't be as exciting. So there's always something that allows us to have enough fun, but also still be able to have some challenge, and also be able to complete the the mission that we have planned for ourselves here. So there is a plan, and we come here with certain abilities and certain endowments. And then once we are here, once we've landed, then those kind of translate to what we've talked about last week is, remember, we talked about 4-inch is emotional, and then 6-inch is physical, 8-inch is mental, 10 is spiritual, and 12 is cosmic. So they're kind of 5 planes of energies that we have. And so within those 5 planes, they kind of translate to something that we experience. So I want to talk about that. That is kind of what I want to talk about this time, because emotional, physical, mental, spiritual, and cosmic. However, as a human experience, how would we be able to translate all of those kind of very intangible energy planes as something that we can actually experience? So that's where my focus is today. So let me just share screen. Okay, so we kind of talked about last week, we talked about what each of those planes, the qualities of those are. And so we kind of looked at this chart last week. So this time, what I want to look at is, so how do these 5 planes kind of translate to? And one of the things they translate to, the 5 things that they translate to wealth, companion, influence, output, and resource. So I want to go over each of these with you. So wealth is not just money. Wealth is actually, I would say, the word that I want to emphasize is abundance, because abundance is actually natural. It's in nature. When you look at nature, abundance is natural. There's always going to be rain. There's always going to be sunshine. Not at the same time, however, you know that, if the sun is going to come out at some point, and then the rain is going to come out at some point. So there's no shortage of those. So abundance is really what it's our innate abilities as a human being as well. The capacity to make money, to create money, to attract money, to manage, and it's not just money, but it's not just physical material. It's also energetic abundance as well. So that's kind of what wealth is about. It may show up as finances. It may show up as stability. So when you come in with, let's say, 60% wealth, for example, 60% wealth, it's more than, more than half. So it's enough. How does that translate? So you would be able to, for example, it could be that you are a smart person, because your brain allows you to create and attract money. So when we can create something, invent something, then it is more likely that we can attract money to flow in. And when we have money, it's easier for us to have a stable place to live, to stay, to eat, and all that. So that is all about wealth. That's what wealth is about. In the third dimension. However, when we go up to higher dimension, it could be about energy as well, energetic abundance as well. So you may not have a lot of money. However, if you have that abundance mentality, then even when you just have enough, then you actually don't feel like you lack anything. You may not have, $1 million in the bank. However, whenever you need to use money to pay for food or pay for a place to stay, you have enough. So that is already abundant. That's why there are some people that have lots of money, but they are just so greedy. It's because even, when they have money in the bank, they never feel that there is enough. There's always this lack. There's always that fear that, whatever money that's in the bank at this moment, they may be billions, but it can flip into zero tomorrow. So it's not just physical, it's also emotional and energetic as well. So that's wealth. And then companion. Um, there's people that likes to, be by themselves, and then there are people that likes to have groups of people around them. So there are introverts and extroverts. However, even introverts or extroverts, there are degrees of them. There are extroverts that have lots and lots of friends, but they don't really have, I would say, support, because those are just they are happy days friend. They're not really friends that will stick around. So companion or companionship is really the endowment of the ability to build loving relationship, or relationship that has love, that has support, that has connection. You really actually feel that you can connect with another human being or with another group of human beings. So being in the community as well, having the support of the community, having people that is able to support you emotionally as well as financially. So those are all the what being able to build connection is about. So it's kind of the I would say love. For companionship is really love. Is the underlying word. Like wealth is abundance. Abundance does not mean a lot of money. It just means that you have what you need. And when you need it, you will have it. That kind. That is abundance. So companion is there is love. You feel you're loved. You may not have a lot of friends, but you feel you're loved. So that is what companionship is about. Then influence. So influence. It used to be that when you have, when you have you work in a high position, there are lots of people that when you give order, when you tell them to stand, they'll stand, or when you tell them to sit, they'll sit. And I think that's more of the um one kind of leadership. And then there are other kinds of leadership that is inspire. So in 3D, it's more the powerful leader that you need. The leader is someone that, other people will do what you tell them to do. Whereas as we shift to higher dimensions, it's more like people may not do what you ask them to do. It's more like when people see you do something, you give them an example that you inspire them to also follow that example, the example that you're setting. or be inspired by you to find a better way of being in their environment. So these are all about influence. So when I think of influence, I think of inspire. Output. Output is depends on who you are. When you are, let's say, when you are a writer, an output may be a book, well, it could be poems that you're writing, it could be a script that you're writing, all that. And when you're an artist, it could be a painting or it could be a sculpture. So output is really, when we look at it, it's about bringing something from the intangible into the tangible realm. So tangible results. Tangible does not mean that you actually have to be able to put your hands on it. Tangible actually can also mean that, you may create an experience for someone else. Let's say when you sing, you people resonate with the song that you're singing. When you sing something that is very happy, you actually allow people to feel and join in with your happiness. And when you sing, let's say a sad love song, that people can actually feel that emotion and be able to either resonate or not resonate with what it is that you are bringing. So that's also output. Resource is, I would say resource is ability to get things that you don't have right now. It could be that you don't know something, but you have the ability to find out how to know that, how to gather the knowledge that you don't have. And then how do you find the people that you don't already have now? So that is more what I think of as the resource. It could be the ability to do, let's say, research, to strategically plan something. So all these are all about resource. So let me just go back here to check in with everyone. So this is what I mean by like in terms of the 5 planes, how those 5 planes of energy actually translates into these kind of traits or abilities or endowments that we have, so that we are able to create the experience that we want to have in this lifetime. So any questions or comments so far?
I hope you will send us the slides so I don't need to make notes or take
Okay.
pictures. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay. Yes. No more? Okay. Then let me just go back to the rest of that. Okay, so now let's go to this slide. This kind of talks a little bit, because now that we know, we know these 5 traits. So wealth, companion, influence, output, resource. So we kind of just, this is more about breaking down what's involved into creating that. So wealth is, in a way, it is physical. It is because it is about money, or it could be things that, or could be material things that we have. So it is more physical. However, it can also be spiritual as well. Wealth could also be spiritual. It could also be mental as well, because when you're smart, you can actually think of ways to attract wealth. So it draws energy from, the plane is this 6-inch, 8-inch, and 10-inch. So from those three planes, you draw resources or energies from all those planes that will be able to be expressed as material creation and all that. So when we have higher percentage of wealth, then we have, like when we increase our wealth, percentage, let's say 60% is not enough. I want to increase it to 80, for example. So what does that mean? It means that I I may be able to create more stability for myself, more material things. And then when you are less, when you want to decrease, then these are this is what may happen. So it does not mean that, you don't have enough. It just means that when you decrease that, you're just not as needy about it. You just don't need that as much. And the companion is mostly emotional part, but it can be very spiritual as well. So, I didn't really put in the 10-inch in there. So it's for being able to relate and connect to somebody else. It could be emotional, but it's also spiritual as well. So increase these. So why talking about increase and decrease? Because we can actually, let's say, so for me, my wealth percentage is 60. If I want to, I can actually, increase that up to 80%, for example, or 85 or higher. It's just that there is always plus side and a positive and negative part. So if I make my wealth percentage higher, I am activating the planes, for example, 6-inch, the physical plane, much more. When I activate that plane much more, then the other planes will have to adjust. So there's always a give and take. When I increase my wealth, then I may need to decrease in some of the others because I only have 24 hours a day. So if I focus so much on creating wealth, that means I may have to sacrifice some companions. I may not be able to connect with as many people, or even same number of people, but I may not be able to connect with them as deeply. So there's always give or take. So that's why there is this column of, increase leads to and decrease leads to, because when you kind of know what's involved, then you will be able to make the right choice as to, how much percentage of wealth or influence or output that you want. Because if you want to have a lot of output, for example, you want to write, from now till I cross over the path till I die, I want to, let's say, write, 20 books, then, I have to put out a lot of output, which means I may not have as much time to do some of the other things. So that's why it's well, we may think that, as much wealth is good or as much, the most output is better. Not necessarily, because their life is not so much about having um, um, everything, at the highest level possible. There is always something that has to give, because when we have a physical body to deal with, then there are limitations that we have to consider. So this is kind of giving us a some idea of what's the good points and the bad points of either increasing or decreasing. Questions, comments so far?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You said that if we're gonna pay more attention to wealth, we're gonna miss the other stuff. Why we cannot just win in lottery and get everything and do not, you know, um, sacrificing and other stuff things.
You think winning a lottery is going to solve everything? However, I
Exactly.
just I just want to let you know that, statistically, um, most people that have won lotteries, they don't actually end up being, you know, as doing as well, 5 years down the road. Maybe at the point that they all of a sudden has that much money, it may be good. However, there are problems as well. For example, you may have relatives coming out of the woodworks trying to get some money from you, or you may have
I would give myself. I would pay my mortgage. I give my daughter, give the here, there to my teachers. I would give everything. I just have to pay my needs first.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yep. um all I'm saying is that there's always you don't know what it is that is going to be the drawback. It could be that, when it, well, for example, okay, it may be when you have wealth, it may be that companion. So the people that are around you, you may all of a sudden find out, how do you know whether someone is actually being nice to you because you have money or because they actually want to be with you and enjoy your company. So I would say, at initially it may not be a problem, but in the long term, it can be. So, but then, that's something that you have to figure out for yourself.
I would figure out if I would get this.
Mhm. Okay.
Where does health fit in there?
Um, Not so it would be more it does not. It's not a one-to-one translation. However, it could be output. It can definitely affect your output if you're not healthy. Then, how do you
Yeah.
go and create things and bring things so it's not a direct. It cannot be translated directly. However, it's like even relationship. When you're healthy, you actually feel more like being able to go out and meet more people. Whereas when you're not healthy, you may not even have the I would say energy to go out and socialize very much with the people around you. So it's not a one-to-one.
Yeah. Yep. Makes sense.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. If no more, then let me just say a couple more things before we go into meditation. So, a destiny. So, the topic for this evening is destiny. So, destiny is really going back to what our soul has planned for us. The life that we are living right now may or may not be what our soul has planned for us. It could be a lot of things. It could be like our life can be derailed just because, we have all these planning and we have all these resources that we brought with us. That does not mean that our life is going to go like there's no track to make sure that you are heading in the right direction. It's not as simple as that. Because life happens, especially, Earth is not an easy environment to, go according to what the soul, because there are so many distractions, there are so many things that can go wrong. So, just because our life is not on purpose, it does not mean that we are a failure. It's not like that. I think our soul is intelligent enough to know that. That's why when I say that, before we come here, our soul actually has mapped out a plan for us. It actually has mapped out, multiple lifetimes for us. However, it's not something that is cast in stone. It is a dynamic plan. If something happens and we couldn't complete, something that is very important in us, when our soul thinks that, okay, something is very important, we have to have this experience in order for us to go forward. Otherwise, things is going to, go haywire later on. Then so the next lifetime we may have another plan. However, because of what happened in previous life, so we have a task of resolving that before we move on. So it's a dynamic plan. And the best way for us to make sure that we are on plan is really to release as much karma as possible, to process as much of our like to get to neutral. So the process our emotions as much as possible, because what can derail us is really just our beliefs, karma, all that is going to derail us. So the more work that we do to release the karma and also to get back to neutral, not to have a very one-track mind of, either, I to as have okay, the best way to express it is to have as little ego as possible. while we are still alive, it may not be possible to have no ego at all, but to be able to work with our ego so much that to have this relationship with our ego so that our ego is more the servant of the soul, not the other way around. Because a lot of the times it is really what our ego hangs on to are the things that we have not quite resolved yet. So same thing goes back to becoming neutral as much as neutral as possible in terms of processing our emotions and letting go of karma. That's why past I don't know how long we've been doing a lot of karma release. Because the more we can let go of those things, the easier it is that we can go back to where it is that our soul actually wants us to do. We naturally do that. So that is going back to reclaiming our destiny. Is no matter how far off path we are, we can always go back. So how do we go back? One of the ways is to, I find very after going to Seafood James retreat, I really appreciate it very much because I kind of know, but I don't know for sure. And because I don't know for sure, um so I kind of flip-flopped quite a bit. And it took me much longer than it needs to for me to kind of get back to doing what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. And so not everybody has, I would say, is able to figure out, okay, so it's like I got a report that says, okay, plain 4-inch is supposed to be, let's say, 10, and then 6-inch is supposed to be, 15, and then 8-inch is 20, for example, and then 10-inch is 20, and then cosmic is 15. Let's say that's my the distribution. Whereas right now, my emotional could be very far away from what it is that that very far away from my original set. But when I start to get back to my original set, I can feel there are slight shift in emphasis in consciousness that helps me to helps me to shift the wealth and also the other wealth, companion, influence, output, and resources and all that. So how do we get get ourselves back to where we originally? So at the 12-inch level, at the as I mentioned, 12-inch is roughly about I would say one head. I think it's one head above, which is actually 12-inch. I think at 8-inch is one head. So 12 inches about a head and a half. So kind of into the second head there is there's a place where our Akashic record stored all those information in there. So we may not know consciously unless we have somebody else to actually go and do the birth chart and do the figure out for ourselves what those original and sets of the 5 planes is. But when we activate the 12-inch, we actually, our soul already has a copy of that. It is just that most of the time we don't have access to it because we think too much, or emotionally we maybe are too emotional to be able to access those parts. That's why meditation of that is much easier for us to access that set of the original 5 planes that we come with. So that's why I want to go over how do we access that, so that if you choose to, you can go back to that. So if you look at the screen now, there is, so this is kind of this is just to activate all the eyes. Okay, so this one is just to activate all the eyes. And then this is really how to access that, because we already know that at the 12-inch plane, all the endowments that we bring with us, it's really our destiny. So we have that. So what we have to do is go to pure energy. So pure energy, as I remember I talked about last time, is really to shut down our emotions, shut down our mind. So shut down the mental and the emotional plane, so that your spiritual part of you can talk to the physical part of you directly. So that's pure energy activation, total eyes, and then soul activate. Okay, so that your soul is in charge. So that's what that is. And then we do the pure source activate. Pure source, there are levels of source. There's source that has both duality in it as well. So pure source is a higher level of source that has no duality. So the first time we activate the soul is actually just to clear out everything. And then we activate the soul again. This time the soul, there's no more interference. So we activate the soul again, and then we go into void. So we activate void. When we are in void, void is the time space that has everything is in potential. It means that you can, like, everything is in there. Nothing is, there's no matter in there. So everything is just a wave, meaning that everything is infinite possibilities is in there. So that's where we can actually create and get the best results. So in void, activate, and then we go for pure source destiny activate, which is we activate our the original destiny and all the energies that we come with for the soul that we have in this incarnation. So that is the procedure. Questions, comments before we go to the meditation?
What about soul growth or soul learning? Are we here to learn and grow? Is that just part of what you're talking about?
Can you ask that question again? I don't quite.
What about, like, we come here for our soul to grow and learn. Is that what we're talking about here? Or we come here to learn, grow, and evolve. Maybe that it doesn't apply here.
Okay, so what our soul, let me go back a couple of steps. So there are levels of soul.
Okay.
The levels of soul. And so we are in this creation, this whole creation. Like even soul itself is a creation. So source, pure source is all and everything. It's all and everything. So it knows all and everything. However, we've created a certain environment, which we called this universe. And in this universe, there are certain rules that it has been established in the at the outset, at the creation of this universe. Just like in the creation of Earth, there are certain things that we have to abide by. Okay, so it's like you create a program and the program has certain parameters. So when we say learn, it's not to learn, but actually to remember I mentioned that we have a plan and then we come here to experience what we have planned. So the soul knows enough to plan. However, when we actually experience something, it's a little different. That's why we don't always get exactly what the soul has planned. So each time we come here and we have an experience and then we kind of know, okay, so when the soul plan XYZ, then this is what can happen. Okay, so then what happens is the soul would be able to gather information so that next time it can plan better. So it's always gather. I think learn may not be the best word for it. Learn is like you don't know, so you want to learn. However, it is all just gathering information.
It's more like play.
Yeah.
We're playing.
And from play, we kind of gather more information so that when we actually do something, there is better chance of being able to map things out more accurately.
Oh, okay.
Until at some point we'll be able to plan and have and be able to execute the plan perfectly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Any other comments? Okay.